Welcome to Old Coin Cave, where forgotten coins can reveal stories and sometimes surprising money. Tonight, we're putting rare coins under the spotlight, searching for the tiny clues that separate ordinary pocket change from valuable collector treasures. A worn coin may look worthless, but its condition, rarity, mint mark, or hidden variety could change everything. Stay with us as we uncover where the real value hides. Thanks for your precious time, support, and passion for coin collecting. A 1923 Buffalo nickel with no mint mark can look like the least exciting coin in an old collection. No D, no S, nothing obvious. Just a worn 5-cent piece from another era. But I need to be honest with you, that missing letter is completely normal. A 1923 Buffalo nickel without a mint mark was struck at Philadelphia, and Philadelphia produced millions of them. So if somebody tells you that every 1923 nickel without a mint mark is automatically rare, that's your first warning sign. The ordinary, beat-up version may be worth only a few dollars depending on condition and collector demand. But here's where the story changes. A beautifully preserved Philadelphia example can be dramatically more desirable than the same coin after decades of circulation. Let me paint the picture for you. It is 1923. The United States is entering the heart of the Roaring Twenties. Jazz is exploding across American culture. Radio is bringing entertainment into homes. Automobiles are changing daily life, and Warren G. Harding has recently died, leaving Calvin Coolidge to become president. The country is modernizing rapidly, but a Buffalo nickel is still passing from hand to hand in ordinary transactions. Gas stations, stores, streetcars, lunch counters, this little coin could have traveled almost anywhere. Most examples were eventually beaten up by circulation. Some lost their dates almost completely. Others were damaged, cleaned, or simply forgotten. And a tiny fraction survived with exceptional surfaces and strong details. That's the version we want to investigate, because the hidden fortune isn't in the absence of a mint mark. It's in what that coin looks like when you examine every detail. Listen closely, because this is where the real money hides. Take your 1923 no mint mark Buffalo nickel and place it under strong neutral light. Don't use a harsh glare directly above it. Instead, position the light at an angle so the shadows reveal the surface. Hold the coin only by its edges and start with the date. Is the 1923 completely natural, or does something about the digits look suspicious? Now move to the Native American portrait. Under a 5x to 10x loop, study the hair, cheek, braid, and forehead. These high points can tell you whether the coin has experienced significant circulation. Then turn it over. Look at the buffalo's horn, shoulder, hip, tail, and the lettering around the denomination. Here's the crucial distinction. Weak detail isn't automatically a mint error. Buffalo nickels were sometimes struck with less than perfect definition, so a soft area may simply be a weak strike. Your job is to determine whether an unusual feature was created at the mint or happened afterward. Look for raised die cracks, unusual die deterioration, or genuine doubling that can be matched to a recognized variety. A random scratch running across the date doesn't qualify. Neither does a dent that happens to resemble a doubled letter. If the feature cuts into the surface, that is usually evidence of post-mint damage rather than a raised die characteristic. And remember, the Philadelphia issue has no mint mark by design. Don't mistake an empty space beneath the denomination for a missing letter that should have been there. That is not the jackpot. The jackpot is exceptional preservation or a legitimate, documented mint-made variety. Your field protocol is simple, but you have to be patient. First, photograph both sides of the coin before handling it further. Take one image straight on, then several at different lighting angles. Next, compare your coin with clear photographs of normal 1923 Philadelphia Buffalo nickels. Look at the date, compare the lettering, study the portrait, examine the buffalo, then inspect the rim from one side all the way around. You're looking for evidence of an off-center strike, but don't confuse a damaged rim with a genuine mint error. A real off-center strike shows a clear displacement of the design relative to the planchet, often with a corresponding area where the design is missing. Now check the edge. Look for unusual metal movement or damage, but don't interpret every irregularity as an error. This coin is a copper-nickel alloy, so supposed missing clad layer is not the correct explanation for a 1923 Buffalo nickel. If someone claims that a strange color proves a missing clad layer, be skeptical. Color alone cannot establish a mint error. What can make this coin truly interesting is a combination of documented variety, strong strike, original surfaces, and exceptional grade. A worn 1923 Philadelphia nickel remains a modest collectible. A sharply struck, original, high-grade example can be a very different proposition. At the top end, professionally certified buffalo nickels with extraordinary preservation can reach substantial prices, potentially into the thousands or more when rarity and grade justify it. But don't let one spectacular auction result convince you that every 1923 nickel belongs in that category. Those headline pieces are exceptional survivors. Now imagine placing two 1923 no-mint mark buffalo nickels side by side. One has a barely readable date, flattened portrait, smooth buffalo, scratches across the fields, and years of abuse. The other has a crisp date, strong design details, clean original-looking surfaces, and remarkably little circulation. Both are Philadelphia coins. Both are 1923, but collectors could value them very differently. That's the secret. Condition can completely rewrite the story of an otherwise common issue. I need to stress one more thing: never clean the coin while you're investigating it. No polishing cloth, no chemical dip, no abrasive rubbing, no attempt to make the date brighter. Cleaning can leave permanent hairlines and alter the original surface, potentially reducing collector appeal. If your loupe reveals something unusual, preserve it exactly as found. Document it. Compare it with trusted references. Then, if the evidence still looks convincing, consider professional authentication and grading. The most valuable discovery isn't necessarily the strangest-looking coin. Sometimes it's the quiet survivor that checks every box. Genuine 1923 date, Philadelphia origin, excellent strike, original surfaces, minimal marks, and unusually high preservation. That's how a coin that looks like ordinary pocket change can become a serious collector piece. So before you toss that old buffalo nickel back into a jar, slow down, look closer. The missing mint mark isn't the mystery, the condition might be, and sometimes that's the clue that changes everything. But hold on tight, because what's coming next is even more jaw-dropping. The next coin left collectors scrambling. Let's move on to our second coin. 1924 buffalo nickel with no mint mark could be sitting in an old jar right now, looking like a worn 5-cent piece that nobody has thought about in years. But here's the strange part. The absence of a mint mark is completely normal for this coin, and that is exactly where the story gets interesting. A 1924 nickel without a D or S was struck at Philadelphia, while the branch mints in Denver and San Francisco placed their respective letters on the coins. So if someone tells you that a missing mint mark automatically makes a 1924 buffalo nickel rare, stop right there. Here's what most people miss. The real question isn't whether the coin has a mint mark. It's what condition the coin survived in, and whether it carries a legitimate mint-made characteristic that collectors recognize. In 1924, America was deep into the roaring 20s. Radio was rapidly entering American homes, jazz was reshaping popular entertainment, automobiles were changing how people traveled, and Calvin Coolidge was president. The country looked modern on the surface, but everyday commerce still depended heavily on coins like this one. A worn 1924 Philadelphia buffalo nickel is generally an affordable collectible, often worth only a few dollars depending on condition and market demand. That's the pocket change version. But imagine finding one with exceptionally sharp details, original surfaces, and unusually strong preservation after more than a century. Suddenly, you're not looking at the same kind of collectible. You're looking at a coin that deserves serious examination. And the reason is simple. High-grade buffalo nickels are difficult because the design's raised areas were exposed to circulation, contact marks, and weak strikes almost immediately. Pay attention to this next part, because this is where you separate genuine evidence from wishful thinking. Put the coin beneath a bright, neutral light and start with the date. Don't immediately search for an error. First determine whether the coin itself has survived well enough to justify deeper investigation. Hold it by the edges and use a 5x to 10x loupe. Study the Native American portrait, especially the hair, cheek, braid, and forehead. Then turn it over and examine the buffalo's horn, shoulder, hip, tail, and the lettering around the denomination. Why these areas? Because they are among the first places where circulation and strike weakness become visible. Now look beneath the denomination. If there is no D and no S, you're dealing with the Philadelphia issue. That does not make it rare by itself. In fact, Philadelphia struck millions of 1924 Buffalo nickels. Here's what makes the investigation worthwhile. Exceptionally preserved examples can be much harder to find than ordinary circulated pieces. The jackpot scenario is not a mythical no-mint mark error. Instead, you want a genuinely high-grade specimen or a documented mint-made variety. Look for raised die cracks, unusual die deterioration, or verified doubling that can be matched against reliable references. Be suspicious of random scratches, dents, corrosion, and post-mint damage. A scratch cuts into the surface. A genuine die feature is formed as part of the striking process. That distinction can be worth thousands of dollars in the right circumstances, and if you think you've found something unusual, don't clean it, don't polish it, don't try to brighten the date. Preserve the evidence exactly as it is. Here's your action plan. First, photograph the obverse and reverse under normal lighting. Then take additional close-up photographs while slowly changing the angle of the light. Shadows can reveal raised features that disappear under flat lighting. Next, compare your coin with clear reference photographs of ordinary 1924 Philadelphia Buffalo nickels. Look specifically at the date, lettering, rim, portrait, and buffalo. If you suspect doubled lettering or a doubled date, compare the shapes and positions of the design elements rather than simply looking for a fuzzy edge. If you suspect an off-center strike, inspect the entire design and rim for consistent displacement. A random damaged edge is not an off-center error. And remember, this is a copper-nickel Buffalo nickel, not a clad coin, so a supposed missing clad layer is not the correct explanation for a dramatic 1924 error. If somebody claims that feature is responsible for a huge value, verify the claim before believing it. Now let's talk money without the hype. A heavily worn 1924 no-mint mark Buffalo nickel is usually a low-dollar collectible. Depending on its condition, it might be worth only a small premium over face value. But as you move into higher grades, the story changes. A well-preserved example with strong detail, original surfaces, and attractive eye appeal can command considerably more. At the extreme upper end, certified specimens in exceptional grades can reach into the thousands and under the right circumstances, potentially five-figure territory. But those prices belong to extraordinary coins, not ordinary pocket-worn examples. That's why condition must be judged honestly. Look for scratches across the open fields. Check the portrait for friction. Study the buffalo's highest points. Inspect the rims for damage. Examine the surfaces for cleaning or unnatural brightness. One small problem can dramatically change how collectors view the coin. Now here's the question I want you to keep in your mind. If the missing mint mark is normal, where exactly could the value be hiding? It could be in preservation. It could be in a recognized die variety. It could be in an authentic striking anomaly. Or it could simply be a nice old Buffalo nickel with historical appeal and modest collector value. That's the honest answer. The excitement comes from investigating rather than assuming. Picture 2 1924 Philadelphia nickels sitting on the same table. One is dark, scratched, heavily worn and barely readable. The other has a crisp date, strong portrait detail, a well-defined buffalo, clean original-looking surfaces, and minimal evidence of circulation. To an untrained eye, they're both just old nickels. To a collector, they tell two completely different stories. That's why your inspection should be slow and methodical. Confirm the year. Confirm the absence of a mint mark. Study the strike. Examine the highest points. Search for legitimate die characteristics. Compare photographs. Avoid cleaning. And if your coin survives all those tests, professional authentication and grading may be worthwhile. Don't chase a five-figure headline simply because an internet listing shows one. Auction prices can represent exceptional certified specimens and shouldn't be treated as the value of every coin with the same date. The 1924 Philadelphia Buffalo nickel is a perfect reminder that rarity isn't always hiding behind a mysterious symbol. Sometimes the secret is simply an extraordinary survivor of an ordinary production run. And after more than a century, that kind of survivor can be exactly what serious collectors want to find. Now don't go anywhere just yet. The story gets wilder from here. The next coin is a true sleeper hit. Let's move on to our third coin. 1936 Buffalo nickel with no mint mark looks like the kind of coin that could disappear into a drawer for another 50 years. But here's the twist. The missing mint mark is not the mystery. It is supposed to be there, or rather, not there. Philadelphia struck the no mint mark issue, and the real question is whether your particular coin survived in extraordinary condition or carries a genuine mint-made variety. This blew my mind when I first found out. According to current NGC pricing, circulated 1936 Buffalo nickels can range from about 50 cents to $20 depending on condition, while exceptional uncirculated examples can reach dramatically higher levels. So forget the idea that every old nickel is a fortune. Most aren't. Now imagine opening an old collection and finding a 1936 piece with unusually sharp details, original surfaces, and almost no evidence of circulation. Suddenly, the investigation changes. In 1936, the United States was still fighting through the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt was president. The country was watching the coming election. Jesse Owens was preparing for the Berlin Olympics, and international tensions were becoming increasingly serious. At the same time, radio, automobiles, movies, and modern manufacturing were reshaping everyday American life. These nickels were not museum pieces when they were made. They were working money. They could have paid for food, transportation, or small purchases before disappearing into someone's pocket. Most were worn down. A few survived remarkably well, and that is where our cold case begins. Here's the detail that separates a dollar from a fortune. Condition has to be judged with brutal honesty. Turn the coin under bright light and start with the date. Then examine the Native American's hair, cheek, braid, and forehead under 5x to 10x loop. Move slowly. Don't let glare hide the surface. Now flip the coin and study the buffalo's horn, shoulder, hip, tail, and lettering. A weak feature does not automatically mean an error. Buffalo nickels can have strike weakness, and circulation can flatten exactly the same areas. Now look beneath the denomination. If there is no D or S, that confirms the Philadelphia issue. That's normal for this coin, but don't stop there. The genuine jackpot connected with this year is not some imaginary, missing mint mark error. A documented major variety exists on the 1936 D, known as the 312 legs variety, but that requires a D mint mark, and therefore is not the Philadelphia no mint mark coin we're investigating here. PCGS currently lists the 1936 D312 legs variety separately, with values far above an ordinary 1936 issue at high grades. That distinction matters. If your 1936 has no mint mark, don't try to force it into the famous Denver variety. Instead, focus on what the coin actually is. A Philadelphia issue whose potential premium comes primarily from condition, legitimate varieties if documented, and exceptional preservation. The most valuable mistake you can make is believing the wrong story about the right coin. Your inspection checklist looks like this. First, photograph both sides before doing anything to the coin. Second, place it beneath one strong neutral light source and tilt the coin slowly through different angles. Third, inspect the date and lettering with your loupe. Look for genuine raised die characteristics, unusual doubling, or die cracks that appear to have been created during striking. Fourth, examine the rim for evidence of a genuine mint error rather than damage. A true off-center strike should show consistent displacement of the design, not simply a damaged edge. Fifth, compare suspicious features with clear reference photographs of normal 1936 Philadelphia Buffalo nickels. This comparison step is critical because scratches, dents, corrosion, and cleaning marks can look dramatic under magnification. And here's something else you need to know. A Buffalo nickel is made from a copper-nickel alloy, not a modern clad construction. So if someone claims that a strange color or missing clad layer is the reason a 1936 nickel is worth a fortune, be skeptical. The diagnosis does not fit the coin's composition. What you want is evidence. Does the unusual feature have a logical minting origin? Does it repeat in a way consistent with a die characteristic? Can it be matched to a recognized variety? If not, don't assign a huge value simply because the coin looks strange. And never clean it while investigating. No polishing, no abrasive rubbing, no chemical treatment. Preserve the surface exactly as you found it. Now comes the money question. What is an ordinary 1936 Philadelphia Buffalo nickel actually worth? Current NGC pricing places circulated examples from roughly 50 cents to $20 depending on grade, while its listed pristine examples can reach much higher, with the guide showing extraordinary top-end values. PCGS likewise shows a huge progression as the 1936 issue moves into high mint state grades, with its guide listing substantially higher figures for exceptional certified examples. That tells you something important. The difference between the pocket change version and the auction house centerpiece is not simply the date. It is preservation. A worn coin with a weak date and flattened buffalo remains a modest collectible. A superbly preserved coin with strong strike detail, clean original-looking surfaces, and an exceptional certified grade can become a serious numismatic piece. But don't compare your scratched coin to a spectacular auction result and assume the same price applies. It doesn't. High-end prices belong to exceptional examples. That's why professional grading can matter when the coin genuinely appears to qualify. Before that point, your job is evidence gathering. Check the date. Confirm the absence of the mint mark. Examine the strike. Study the surfaces. Look for post-mint damage. Compare photographs. Then decide whether the coin deserves expert evaluation. The goal isn't to manufacture a fortune out of an ordinary nickel. The goal is to recognize an extraordinary one when the evidence is actually there. And that is what makes the 1936 Buffalo nickel with no mint mark such an interesting piece of detective work. The obvious clue turns out to be completely normal. The absence of a mint mark doesn't solve the case, it eliminates one wrong theory. From there, everything depends on what the coin preserved. Think of the difference between two examples sitting under the same lamp. One is dark, worn, scratched, and missing much of its original detail. The other has a clear date, strong portrait definition, a sharply outlined buffalo, attractive original surfaces, and minimal contact marks. They share the same year and mint origin, but their stories, and potentially their values, can be worlds apart. So don't chase the loudest claim. Follow the evidence. If your coin looks unusually strong, protect it, photograph it, study it under magnification, compare it carefully. And if the characteristics continue to hold up, professional authentication and grading may be the next step. The real treasure isn't finding a random old coin and calling it rare. It's knowing exactly why an exceptional coin deserves attention. Somewhere, another 1936 Buffalo nickel may be sitting quietly in a collection, waiting for someone to notice that it survived far better than almost anyone expected. Stick around, because the next piece might already be sitting in your drawer. The next coin shocked the grading world. Let's move on to our fourth coin. A tiny letter D can be the difference between a Buffalo nickel you would spend without thinking and one that makes you stop dead under the light. Let me tell you something nobody talks about. The D does not automatically mean the coin is rare. It tells you the nickel was struck at the Denver Mint. The real question is what happened to that particular coin before it reached your hands. During the 1920s and 1930s, America was changing at remarkable speed. People were embracing automobiles, radio, jazz, movies, and new fashions, while the Great Depression would eventually put enormous pressure on ordinary families. Buffalo nickels were working coins. They paid for everyday purchases and passed through countless hands. Most demint Buffalo nickels became scratched, worn, and forgotten. A beat-up example may be worth only a modest premium over face value, depending heavily on its date and condition. But then you encounter the other version, the coin with a scarce date, exceptional preservation, or a documented mint-made variety. That's when the little d suddenly matters. Close your eyes and imagine this. You find an old Buffalo nickel, turn it over, and there it is beneath the denomination, a tiny d. You almost put it back. Then your loupe reveals something that shouldn't be there. The buffalo appears to have fewer legs. The lettering looks strangely doubled. A die crack travels through the design. Now the investigation begins. This is the part where fortunes are made, but only when the evidence is real. The most famous demint Buffalo nickel variety is the 1937 D three-legged Buffalo nickel. It happened because a working die was heavily polished in an attempt to remove clash marks, and the polishing removed much of the buffalo's front leg detail. The result is an unmistakable-looking buffalo with the appearance of only 3 legs. That's not the same thing as a normal Buffalo nickel with a weak strike. And it isn't a random scratch. It is a recognized mint-made variety that collectors actively seek. But here's the trap. People sometimes see a weakly defined leg on an ordinary Buffalo nickel and immediately call it the 3-legged variety. Don't do that. The genuine 1937 D variety has a specific appearance that should be compared with trusted reference photographs. The front leg area is the key, but you should also examine the rest of the reverse for matching characteristics. And remember, not every D-mint buffalo nickel is a 1937 D three-legged example. The date matters, the variety matters, the condition matters. A heavily worn ordinary Denver buffalo nickel can remain an affordable collector coin, while a genuine 1937 D three-legged buffalo nickel in strong condition can be worth dramatically more. That's why the tiny D is only the beginning of the investigation. Grab your loupe and follow these steps. Number 1. Confirm the date before you do anything else. If you're hunting for the famous three-legged variety, the date must be 1937, and the mint mark must be D number 2. Place the coin under bright, neutral lighting and tilt it slowly rather than staring straight down at it. Number 3. Examine the buffalo's front leg area with 5x to 10x magnification. Don't simply count legs from a blurry photograph. Study the shape and remaining details around the affected area. Number 4. Inspect the reverse for additional die characteristics and compare them with high-quality images of authenticated 1937 D three-legged examples. Number 5. Check the coin for artificial alteration. Someone can deliberately manipulate a coin to imitate missing detail, and damaged coins can create misleading shapes. Number 6. Inspect the rim and surfaces for scratches, gouges, cleaning, or other post-mint damage. Number 7. Photograph the coin from several angles and preserve the original condition. Never polish it, never scrape it, never try to improve the missing leg. And here's something important. A buffalo nickel is not a clad coin, so claims about a missing clad layer should immediately make you question the diagnosis. If your D-mint coin appears unusual, the safest move is comparison with recognized varieties, followed by professional authentication when the evidence warrants it. A spectacular auction price belongs to a specific authenticated coin in a specific condition. It does not automatically apply to every buffalo nickel carrying a D. Now imagine the two coins sitting beside each other. One is an ordinary worn D-mint buffalo nickel. Its date is faint. The buffalo is smooth. The surfaces are covered with years of contact marks. You could easily mistake it for something worth almost nothing. Beside it sits a genuine variety in excellent preservation. Suddenly, every tiny detail matters: the date, the mint mark, the strike, the surfaces, the die characteristics, and the grade. That's the difference between a coin you might spend at the store and a coin collectors may compete to own. So don't let the D fool you in either direction. It doesn't guarantee a fortune, and it doesn't mean the coin is worthless. It is a clue, a starting point, a reason to slow down. If you have a D-mint buffalo nickel, investigate the date first, then inspect the reverse, then compare the exact characteristics against documented varieties. If the evidence points toward a major variety such as the 1937 D three-legged buffalo, stop treating that little nickel like ordinary pocket change. Protect it, and consider professional authentication before believing any dramatic valuation. Because somewhere in an old collection, a forgotten box, or a drawer that hasn't been opened in years, another buffalo nickel may be waiting with one tiny detail that changes its entire story. And here's the question I want you thinking about when you look at yours tonight. What if the feature you've been ignoring is the one collectors have been searching for? Don't put that coin away yet. Turn it over one more time, bring the light closer, and look where almost nobody looks. The next clue may be smaller than a grain of sand, but it could change everything you thought you knew about that 5-cent piece.